Hello and welcome, my friends. Welcome back to my Astrology 101. In today's session, we're going to explore those personal planets. Now, before we dive into these planets, I do want to let people know that this is a continuation from a series I started out weeks ago, where we started to explore your astrological birth chart. We've gone through some zodiac, and I have promised to go into some of these planets, and that's what we're going to do today. If you haven't seen my other videos building up to this one on the zodiac and your birth chart, I highly recommend that you do go back and explore these videos. I'll leave a link below and a card above so you can go check out that series. Now, personal planets. These are the planets that are closest to Earth. They have the most influence on us. Those retrogrades, they sock it to us hard. Now, a retrograde. You hear this in popular culture. Well, here's the science behind it. It's an optical illusion where it looks like the planet is going backwards or anti-clockwise around the sun. This, of course, is the influence on the energies involving whichever planet or body. Now, the energies that are connected to the planet or body, they seem to shift inward opposed to an outward exploration. These reversed energies are felt on Earth in a variety of ways, which can of course lead to a wide range of personal emotions and spiritual reflections. Now, in your astrological birth chart, this is the symbol at the corner here, this R with this kind of cross symbol at the end of the R's leg. This is the symbol that you will see on your birth chart. You can, on your birth chart, have a planet or a body in retrograde when you were born. This means that the energies of that planet or body are felt more strongly. Many times, you do have the denial or lacking or a feeling that something's missing in this area of life and with the energies involved, as a planet will rise in certain what's called houses, and I'll explain those in a later date. Here's what a birth chart looks like with some retrograde planets. Additionally, you may have the stylized R in the circular part of the birth chart like this. However, you may also have it just as a regular R in the bottom part of the astrological birth chart. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just a thing. Well, there's two sides to each coin. So knowing that you can have a retrograde in your birth chart, just be aware that it does impact you a lot more deeper and on that inside. Now let's get into the planets. Of course, the first one, we all know it, we all love it, Mercury. This is the first planet in our solar system. It's the closest to the sun. And this is the science, guys. This is all the science behind the woo-woo. It is the smallest planet. It is a little slightly larger than our moon. It can also be seen by the naked eye, which is really cool. It kind of looks like one of the stars, except it's a little bit brighter. Now, Mercury's orbit around the sun is 88 days. Now, this little symbol in the bottom corner here, this is the female symbol, and it kind of has a U-shaped hat or bowl on the top of her head. And that's the symbol that you will see in your astrological birth chart or other astrology documents. From the science, let's get into some of the mythology. Mercury, of course, was named after the Roman god Mercury, who was the god of commerce, eloquence, messages, communication, travel, boundaries, luck, trickery, merchants, and thieves. Very much connected in as well to the Greek god of Hermes, of boundaries, roads, travels, merchants, thieves, athletes, shepherds, commerce, speed, cunning, language, oratory, wit, and messages. Now, both gods were the messenger of their pantheon. This is a beautiful statue of Hermes, and he is carrying the caduceus. Now, both Hermes and Mercury were connected in with the caduceus, and of course is the symbol for many health-related organizations and systems around the world. Now, getting a little bit more into the woo-woo here. Mercury and the major arcana, because, hey, I'm a tarot girl at heart, the Magician. And the colors connected to Mercury, green, yellow, and light blue. Crystals that work really well with Mercury, emerald, peridot, blue lace agate, clear quartz, and amethyst. Please know this is not an exhaustive list. These are ones that resonate really well with Mercury. Now, when you're working with Mercury in especially your astrological birth chart, this is how you experience life and process it through your understanding of your thoughts, feelings, and your experience of the physical reality around you. What does this mean? Mercury helps us unlock a deeper understanding of yourself and the world around you. Mercury can help you understand how we interact with everything and everyone around us. You've got to remember that Mercury is connected into our communication. Hermes and Mercury are the messenger gods. Mercury, our messenger planet. Many of us have heard of or have been challenged during Mercury in retrograde. So this is when Mercury has that optical illusion of going backwards in its orbit. What happens when Mercury goes into retrograde? We process information differently. Learning disabilities and difficulties are exacerbated. Even if you're not diagnosed with a learning disability, you start to have difficulties. If you do have a disability, well, it's amplified. It really comes to the surface. Very self-critical, feelings of disconnection, introverted expression, and, well, communication issues, which is part of why we have our learning difficulties, is because the information isn't being processed properly or communicated properly. Now, that all said, let's get into Mercury in your astrological birth chart. Now, no matter where it rises in your birth chart, know that you're looking at all communication. The way you speak, your thought patterns, how you relate to others. You're looking at all the mental processing, intellect, wisdom, the learning. Additionally, you are looking at travel and interactions with your environment. You can also be looking at commerce, depending on where it rises in what house, so what pie chunk it comes up in. Now, if you have the little R, so if you have this, the Mercury symbol with the R, it's in retrograde. Know that a lot of us have a higher chance to have Mercury in retrograde because Mercury goes into retrograde 3 or 4 times a year. It lasts about 20 to 25 days, just depending on where we are in the orbit of the sun and where Mercury is. So it is a rough estimate. So it does happen quite frequently. Know that when you have Mercury in retrograde, you are taking information in differently than you would if it was in the direct alignment. There's a lot of acute thinking, so you're able to focus in and understand things differently, which helps people think outside the box, be a little bit more creative. And depending on where Mercury rises, that thirst for knowledge in different subjects and different aspects of life will be there. Now, there will be struggles with doubting self, doubting information, doubting what you're doing, and a lot of double checking knowledge before you speak, because there's a lot of fear regarding being wrong or being misunderstood. Now, a person can be very, very chatty or very, very quiet and not using their words at all, because communication can be a challenge sometimes. Again, these are very broad aspects because it's going to depend on where it's rising and what it's rising with. And don't worry, I will start to go through each planet with each zodiac and each house. However, I like to keep these bite-sized pieces so you guys don't get overwhelmed. On to the next personal planet, Venus. The science here, of course, this is the second planet from the sun. It is the hottest planet in our solar system. It is also the brightest of all the planets. It looks like the brightest, biggest star. It has been referred to before as the morning or evening star because of how bright it is. And Venus's orbit around the sun is the closest to Earth, where we're looking at 583.92 days to complete its orbit. And of course, Venus is the female sign on itself with the circle and the cross at the bottom. Now, the mythology behind Venus, of course, connected into the Roman goddess Venus for love, beauty, desire, sex, fertility, prosperity, and victory. Of course, closely associated to the Greek goddess Aphrodite of love, lust, beauty, pleasure, passion, and procreation. And of course, we do have a beautiful statue of Venus in the corner there. On the right hand side. Little bit of information on Venus is associated with Fridays, the major arcana, not surprising, the Empress. Colors connected into Venus: pink, light green, and pastel blue. Crystals associated: rose quartz, rhodonite, emerald, aquamarine, and malachite. Now, Venus governs your approach to relationships, your desires, and the way you express affection. Venus also influences your sense of style and those finer things in life because of that beauty, the external and internal beauty. Now, when Venus is in retrograde, a lot of times the relationships, they get hit hard. So there's a struggle to express romantic feelings, fear of intimacy, those really important relationships, they get kind of knocked around because we have troubles opening up. There can also be a little bit of narcissism that comes up during this retrograde period. And, well, it's not a great idea when she is in retrograde to make any financial decisions because you are looking at financial issues rising and a lot of poor financial choices. So if she's in retrograde, really think things through. All right, let's get into Venus in your chart. Well, it's not surprising. Wherever Venus rises, you're looking at love, romance, relationships, marriage, attraction, sexuality, especially for women. You're looking at things like beauty, charm, grace, balance, elegance, and femininity. Not just femininity, the sex of femininity, but the act of being feminine. And because Venus is connected into prosperity, there is some connection into money with Venus, which isn't always that known. And depending on where Venus rises, she can connect into some leisure activities, things you like to do, things that connect in with you. Now, if Venus is in retrograde in your birth chart, no romance and expression of love, it's a bit of a challenge. Trouble opening up to people. You could have some shyness, some fear of intimacy. There can be narcissistic traits. You can also have financial issues or poor financial choices. Again, it's going to depend on where she's coming in. This is what it would look like in your chart with that little R beside the Venus sign. Now, Venus goes into retrograde approximately every 18 months, and she stays in retrograde for about 40 to 42 days. You have a good chance of having it in retrograde. However, it's not as predominant as some. So if you have Venus in retrograde in your birth chart, socialization is taken very seriously, and love is extremely important to you. However, you may not actually share that information to others. You may keep it close to your heart. And other times you let everybody and their dog know about the importance of love and relationships. And oftentimes, as much as you find relationships and love so important, you do see that self-sabotage. And many times when you are looking at sabotaging those relationships, there is a swing to overcompensate and say, oh, I don't need that. I don't need a relationship. I'm fine being single. And guys, the feelings, they're felt hard. The hurts, they're real. Lots of deep insecurities, and the biggest relationship that can take a hard knock is the relationship for self, as self-love can be a huge issue. Again, just because it's in retrograde, it may not actually hit as hard as what this may seem, because it's going to depend on where it's rising and what it's rising with. On to the final personal planet, Mars. The science here, guys, of course, we're looking at the fourth planet from the sun. Mars does have two moons, Phobos and Deimos. Now, Mars can also be seen from the naked eye. It is a reddish-orange light in the night sky. Mars's orbit around the sun is 686.51 days. And of course, the symbol for Mars is a symbol of masculinity with the circle that has a diagonal arrow pointing upwards. And some mythology here. Of course, Mars is named after the Roman god Mars, who is the god of war, guardian of agriculture, and the Roman people. Closely connected into Aries, the god of war and courage. And on the right here, of course, is the depiction of Mars. It's a beautiful bronze statue. Mars is connected into Tuesday, the major arcana, the Tower. The color's probably not too surprising here. Red, scarlet, and orange. Crystals, bloodstone, carnelian, garnet, red jasper, and clear quartz. Now, when you are looking at Mars, you have an association with the energy, passion, drive, desire, and assertiveness. Mars is how we assert ourselves through power, courage, primal instinct, and motivation to take action and pursue our goals. Now, Mars is the masculine energy, while Venus is the female energy, hence the symbols. In retrograde, it's usually an either or. You have the anger, the dominance, the aggression. Sometimes that comes in passive aggressiveness, or you have that doormat, where you just kind of turtle and hide. And a lot of times that indecisiveness, it skyrockets because either you're hiding or you're trying to fight everything that walks by. In your chart, Mars in the chart. Well, of course, this is where your energy and aggression, your courage and strength comes forward. You have competition, the activity, the impulse. You can have, of course, the sexuality and passion, that lust, usually more connected into the masculine overt or connected into masculine sexuality. Of course, you have the pioneering and inner warrior energy as well here. When you have Mars in retrograde, this is what he looks like. Now, Mars is every 22 to 26 months, again, depending on where we're in our orbit, where he's in his orbit. And he lasts in retrograde for 60 to 80 days. Again, you have a good chance of having him in retrograde. However, because you have a longer gap between his retrogrades, there's many of us who manage to have him in the direct orbit. Now, when Mars is in retrograde, because the retrograde energy, it goes inwards, many of us find that it's hard to stand up for ourselves. We have a fear of being ineffective or failing. We also have a roundabout way of achieving things because, again, that action, the energy's inwards and often are misunderstood because of the indecisiveness. There's a lot of hemming and a hawing, and you can have that doormat, I'm afraid energy, or the explosion fight energy. This can come up in a couple of different ways. One, a person can be fine and fine and fine until that final straw that broke the camel's back, who happened to be carrying TNT and big boom. Emotions can also come out in outbursts because, again, there's a dysregulation in emotion. And of course, that fight, the arguing, and in some cases, manipulation is everything because that's how they're getting their point across or trying to be heard. It's going to really depend on the person and, like I said, where Mars is coming in and with whom. Know that the grr can either be the big challenge or you're lacking the grr, is what happens with Aries in retrograde in your birth chart. Now, there are many more planets. There's lots out there. I'll be going through the rest of them in another session because it is a lot of information. I know it's a lot of information. Please know that my Patreon community is getting cheat sheets for all my 101 sessions. So if you're looking for some extra help with these 101s, you're looking for help with different aspects, my community does get a lot of benefits. They are amazing and I love them. I've left a link below. You can come check us out. So like I said, I will be covering the rest of the planets and continuing on explaining these different pieces of your astrological birth chart in these bite-sized chunks so that you can utilize this as a tool to support you in understanding you more fully. I want to thank you for joining me today and exploring these personal planets. I hope that this did help you to understand these really important planets that impact us so very much. Now, if you did like today's session, please give it a thumbs up and let me know if you have a personal planet in retrograde. And if you guys haven't done so, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. I've got a lot more 101s, healings, supports, and readings coming forward, and you don't want to miss any of it. And like I said, I do have a Patreon community. If you're looking for an added layer of support, come check us out. Again, I want to thank you so very much for joining me in this exploration of the personal planets. And I hope this did help to explain why some of these planets really knock you for a loop when they're in retrograde. Until tomorrow, my friends.